As you may have concluded, the community of New Iberia is literally a plethora of landscapes, cultures, languages, nationalities, people, music, art, history, and architecture. And I'm not going to talk about the weather. New Iberia enjoys the unique title of being the sweetest, saltiest, hottest, and oiliest place in the world. There is no shortage of well-known talented people from our small community, even on the national and international stage. One of those persons I'm honored to introduce you today is the architect, Mr. Owen James Trainer Southwell.
Oh, hello. Hello, sorry I didn't see you there. I'm obsessed with numbers and measurements and angles as any good architect would be. I am Owen Southwell. I was born here in New Iberia on September 20th, 1892. They gave me some notes to read, but that's boring to me. I'd rather be at the house on Main Street in the garden, but here I am. Here I am. You know, it seems like it was such a long time ago, but really it was just a moment. When they told me about this appointment with you, I was worried about time. You know, every good architect has to use his resources available to build a proper building, and time is probably the most critical of those. And on a personal note, I was actually campaigning to see if I had time to go see some of my grandchildren. I have 21 of them. I lost count of great-grandchildren. I have no idea how many I have. But I really can't speak of my children without mentioning Yvonne. Yvonne Hernandez Patu. You may recognize the name from the Frederick Hotel. She was married to Frederick Patu. God rest his soul, he died in 1942. Now, Yvonne and I had been good friends growing up, and somehow we connected and we were married in 1945. And look, I was the eternal bachelor. I was never going to marry. I never had kids. She had 8 children. She had 7 sons and a daughter, and it was exciting and new and scary and everything, but it worked, and I took them in and treated them as if they were my own children and loved them just as if they had been. But of course the powers that be said firmly that that would not be an option. I do not have the time to see them. So here we are. And so much has changed here. The courthouse, I see they've added on to it a couple of times, it looks like. The jail's not there anymore. They moved that. Forgive me, I don't mean to be crude, but I have a keen eye for these things. And let me ask you, what happened to automobiles? They used to be grand and have these big, robust fenders and chrome grills and bumpers. What I saw today, something called plastic. They look cheap. They look like they'll fall apart, and they all look the same. I don't get it. I don't get it. But so much has changed. Anyway, on to some of the important things. My father was William Southwell. My mother was Catherine Trainer Southwell. You can see she's buried here with me. My dad was a brick mason. He owned his own factory here. We moved to Beaumont in 1905, business reasons. He was moving his businesses around. I graduated high school there in 1909 and started college at Tulane. I transferred to Carnegie Tech, graduated there in 1913. Middle of World War I, so I joined the Navy, ended up in Southampton, England, survived that, everything was okay. And when the war ended in 1918, I was ready to start my professional career. I was just ready, I was ready to go. So I moved to New York City. I worked for Henry Hornbostel. He was the most acclaimed architect, had his own firm. He ended up building over 225 recognizable buildings, churches, bridges, everything. He even built the Hell's Gate Bridge right there in New York City. 25 of those things, and a few that I worked on, are still listed in the National Historic Registry. I spent some time in Pittsburgh. I ended up in Atlanta for a while. I had taught architecture at Georgia Tech. And then during the Great Depression, I decided to come back here and start my own professional career. My mother died in '39, so she was able to see some of my successes, some of the things I worked on. I wish she had been able to see St. Peter's Church. That's probably my proudest professional achievement, and that's probably what I'm best known for. But there are a list. There's many buildings in the area that I have done. Anyway, I must apologize because our time is so very short here, as is life. I hope you've enjoyed this information, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.